Coming up on this Tuesday edition of Daybreak, North Korean and Japanese Red Cross and government officials meet for the first time in around 2 years for talks about the possible repatriation of the remains of Japanese nationals who died in the north during the Second World War. The United States accuses North Korea of violating UN security resolutions with its Scud missile launches Monday. Washington is calling on Pyongyang to refrain from provocative actions that aggravate tensions. Plus, with Ukraine and Russia on the brink of war, US President Barack Obama says Moscow is on the wrong side of history, and if events continue, the US will examine steps to isolate Russia. Daybreak begins now. Thanks for joining us. To all our viewers here in Korea and around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Tuesday, March 4th here in Seoul. You're watching Daybreak, and I'm Mark Broom. Red Cross representatives from North Korea and Japan met in China Monday for the first time in almost 2 years. During the first round of talks, the two sides agreed to continue negotiations on the possible repatriation of the remains of Japanese nationals buried in the north. Kim Hyun-bin starts us off.
After 6 hours of Red Cross talks in the northeastern Chinese city of Shenyang on Monday, North Korea agreed to cooperate in repatriating the remains of Japanese nationals, although more specifics were not released. The three-day talks, the first since Prime Minister Shinzo Abe took office in late 2012, were proposed by the North. They were led by Lee Ho-rim, Secretary General of the North's Red Cross Society, and Osamu Tasaka, Director General of the International Department at the Japanese Red Cross. Lee said soon after the meeting that officials from both countries need to meet regularly to discuss the repatriation issue. Top senior diplomats from both foreign ministries attended the meeting, but there's speculation that Japan wants to talk about Pyongyang repatriating Japanese abductees who are still alive in the north. The Japanese government lists 17 nationals it believes were abducted by North Korea in the 1970s and 80s. Tokyo, however, suspects Pyongyang may have kidnapped more. 5 abductees were repatriated to Japan in 2002. Japan has been requesting that North Korea reinvestigate where the abductees are. North Korea continues to urge Tokyo to compensate for the suffering of the Korean people during Japan's brutal colonization of the Korean peninsula in the early to mid-20th century.
The Japanese government will address current outstanding bilateral issues, including the abduction of Japanese nationals, and will attempt to bring a proactive attitude out of North Korea.
And what could be a first step toward resuming full-blown official discussions between North Korea and Japan? Eyes are focused on whether the Red Cross meetings will lead to formal bilateral talks between the two governments. Back in 2012, the first government-level meeting between the two countries was held in 4 years after similar Red Cross discussions. But follow-up talks were scrapped after North Korea launched a long-range rocket. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
Turning now to the jolt in inter-Korean relations that kicked off the week, North Korea fired 2 short-range missiles off its eastern coast on Monday. South Korea's defense ministry condemned the move, the second such launch in under a week, and says it's keeping a close watch for additional provocations. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
South Korea's defense ministry remains on high alert after North Korea fired what are believed to have been 2 Scud short-range missiles into the East Sea early Monday morning. The ministry said the missiles flew about 500 kilometers, which means they could hit targets in South Korea and Japan. The launch comes just days after the North fired 4 short-range missiles from the same location. Such launches of short-range missiles by Pyongyang are a common part of its regular military drills, but Seoul sees the latest string of launches as an intentional provocation in protest against annual joint military exercises between South Korea and the United States.
North Korea's short-range ballistic missile launch appears to be a typical two-sided tactic. The North seems to be intentionally ratcheting up tensions by firing the missiles during the key resolve exercises.
South Korea views North Korea's recent missile launches as a violation of UN Security Council resolutions, as a handful of UN sanctions ban the regime from using ballistic missile technology. Experts say launches of this sort are considered a low-degree provocation compared to last year's saber-rattling from Pyongyang, which included threats of nuclear war against Seoul and Washington. Since they come amid thawing inter-Korean ties, experts say it could be a North Korean attempt to build its ground before entering another round of negotiations with the South. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
The United States has slammed North Korea for firing off 2 short-range missiles, saying Monday's launchings were in violation of UN Security Council resolutions. State Department Spokesperson Jen Psaki said Monday that Washington wants Pyongyang to refrain from taking provocative actions and abide by UN Security Council resolutions 1695 and 2094, which prohibit North Korea from firing any ballistic missiles. The spokesperson added the U.S. is continuing to monitor the situation in the north. A Christian missionary from Australia who had been detained in North Korea for around 2 weeks is now a free man. The North's official Korean Central News Agency said the regime released 75-year-old John Short in consideration of his age and for his apology for violating North Korean laws. Mr. Short left for a trip to North Korea last month and was arrested after officials found Christian pamphlets in the Korean language in his luggage. The Australian was picked up by Australian embassy officials from Beijing airport on Monday without making any public comments. Back here in the south, President Park Geun-hye says her vision of a unified Korea will go beyond overcoming division and will aim to create a new future for the peninsula, Northeast Asia, and also the world. President Park made the comments at the Asian Leadership Conference in Seoul on Monday, where she also added there would be no fear of war or nuclear threats in a unified Korea, but rather freedom and peace for Koreans to enjoy. President Park then reaffirmed her recently announced commitment to set up a presidential preparatory committee for reunification. She also met with former US President George W. Bush, who was in Seoul for Monday's conference, and thanked him for continuing his diplomatic activities to strengthen the Korea-US alliance.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, with Ukraine and Russia seemingly on the brink of war, US President Barack Obama has waded in, warning Russia that it's on the wrong side of history in Ukraine and its actions violate international law. Speaking to reporters at the White House on Monday, Obama said Washington is considering diverse economic and diplomatic options that could isolate Russia. He, however, stressed the importance of de-escalating the situation. US Vice President Joe Biden has also urged Russia to pull its forces out of Ukraine. In a phone conversation with Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev on Monday, Biden called on Moscow to engage in dialogue with the Ukrainian government immediately. The White House says Biden told the Russian premier that he supports the idea of deploying international monitors from the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe in an attempt to cool tensions and mediate between the two sides. Moving now to the trade front. Korea leapfrogged Japan to become the biggest player in the Chinese import market last year, taking the #1 spot for the first time ever. Our Na Hyung-yang takes a look at what might be pushing up Korea's share in China.
Korea became the #1 contributor to China's import market for the first time in 2013. This according to the Korea Institute for Industrial Economics and Trade, as well as the Korea International Trade Association. The agencies say Korea beating Japan for the position was possible due to China's growing demand for Korean electronics and manufacturing goods. Data shows Korea's share in China's import market jumped 0.07 percentage point to 9.2% in 2013 compared to 2012, while that of Japan shed more than 1 percentage point to 8.2%. The products China sought after the most from Korea were electronic integrated circuits. China imported more than $45 billion of ICs from Korea last year, a near 15% increase from the previous year. Analysts in Seoul, however, warn because China is attempting to boost its domestic demand, Korea should also come up with ways to accommodate Beijing's changing growth paradigm. Meanwhile, Korea's trade balance remained in the black for the 25th consecutive month in February, according to Trade Ministry data. However, February's trade surplus of $926 million was significantly lower than the same month last year, when it stood at nearly $1.9 billion. Officials attribute the fall to economic crises in emerging economies, coupled with slower than expected recoveries in developed economic powerhouses. 나현경, Arirang News.
Finance Minister Jen Psaki says the government will try to establish a fairer taxation system and collect more taxes from wealthy business owners. During an event commemorating Taxpayers' Day on Monday, Jen said he will create a tax payment system that everyone can be satisfied with. He also said the country needs to create an atmosphere where companies and individuals that pay their taxes are well respected. The number of corporate affiliates has declined slightly compared to the previous month. The Fair Trade Commission says that as of March 1st, the number of corporate affiliates in Korea had dropped to 1,686, down 8 affiliates from the previous month. The Commission said 13 affiliates of companies, including Lotte and Buyong, were excluded following mergers and acquisitions and other reasons, while 5 companies, including Kumho Asiana Group and Dongbu Group, added 5 new affiliates. President Park Geun-hye has tapped a veteran central bank official to be the new governor of the Bank of Korea. The presidential office spokesperson said that nominee Lee Ju-yeol has a profound knowledge of the central bank's business and has a good sense of judgment about the international finance market. Lee started work at the central bank all the way back in 1977 and has held key positions throughout the years, including as the head of the research department. He was also deputy to current governor Kim Jung-soo for about 2 years until 2012. He is considered to be neutral when it comes to monetary policies. The National Assembly will hold a confirmation hearing for Lee within the next 3 weeks. Tens of thousands of medical doctors here in Korea say they're going to stage a one-day strike next Monday and then a 6-day-long protest starting March 24th. The government is warning, however, that it won't sit back and let a medical crisis unfold. Yulian reports on what's ahead.
With an overwhelming yes vote of almost 80%, the Korea Medical Association has decided to go ahead with a nationwide walkout from March 10th. The protest is the first in 14 years, and given that over half of all practicing doctors nationwide participated in the vote, it could potentially deal a huge blow to the medical industry and to patients in need of medical services. Doctors in Korea are furious about a government plan announced late last year to introduce telemedicine in for-profit hospital subsidiaries. They're concerned such measures lay the groundwork for privatizing medical services.
Doctors are feeling extremely desperate given the reality they are facing. So many will voluntarily take part in this strike.
The Ministry of Health and Welfare is trying to reassure the public that the strike will not lead to that much inconvenience, given that they expect the participation rate to only be in the 20 to 30% range. The government has also vowed to take legal measures against those who take part in the strike.
We'll first order the hospitals to resume operations. If it does not do so, it will be suspended from all business operations for 15 days.
Both the ruling and opposition parties have slammed the decision, calling on the Medical Association to call off the walkout for the sake of patients' health. But since both the government and the Medical Association are refusing to back down, not many are holding much hope for a compromise anytime soon. Yurian, Arirang News.
Good day, I'm Eunice Kim, and here are your headlines from around the world. We'll begin with news out of South Africa this morning, where the so-called Blade Runner Oscar Pistorius faced the first day of his murder trial on Monday. Pistorius is charged with murdering his girlfriend, Riva Steenkamp, on Valentine's Day last year. He pled not guilty before the first witness took the stand, a neighbor of the double amputee Olympic sprint runner who told judges she'd heard, quote, blood-curdling screams by a woman, followed by 4 gunshots that night. The athlete has maintained that Steenkamp's death was a tragic accident, as he mistook her as an intruder hiding in the bathroom. A guilty verdict could put Pistorius, once described by Time magazine as the definition of global inspiration, behind bars for life. And new information on the Kunming railway station attack from the weekend. China's Xinhua news agency reports that 3 remaining suspects have been arrested, with 1 injured female suspect already detained. It cited the Ministry of Public Security as saying the team of 6 men and 2 women was led by a person by the name of Abdurrahim Kurban and pointed to Uyghur separatists from Xinjiang, citing insignia and flags discovered with the words East Turkestan. The attack last Saturday killed 34 people and left scores more injured. And at least 31 more people have been killed in northeast Nigeria, bringing the total death toll from the 3 days of attacks to 116 in response to President Goodluck Jonathan's efforts to rein in the Boko Haram network. This time, Islamist insurgents are reported to have stormed a village some 50 kilometers from Borno state capital of Maiduguri. Witnesses say civilians were shot at and bombs thrown at homes. Washington, D.C. was blanketed with up to 10 centimeters of snow on Monday, with some 30 centimeters more forecast to come Tuesday. The storm caused the federal government to call a snow day on Monday, and schools were closed as well, and flights canceled. Power was knocked out from the U.S. capital city to states as far as Arkansas and Texas. The Malaysian government has launched a campaign against dengue fever. The country's health ministry says 36 people have died from the virus-borne disease so far this year. The death toll is higher than the 8 recorded deaths in January and February of last year. The ministry has identified hotspots throughout the country and plans to eradicate spotted breeding grounds of mosquitoes.
And a good Tuesday morning to you all as we kick things off with some good news out of women's golf, as Korea will now host the qualifying rounds for the LPGA U.S. Women's Open for the first time ever. Now on Monday, the Korea Golf Association and the U.S. Golf Association has agreed to have a 36-hole qualifying tournament for the U.S. Women's Open, as it becomes the first time that the country will host such event. With the event taking place at the Ujung Hills Country Club in Cheonan, 70 pro golfers and 14 amateur golfers are set to be invited for the event. The 36-hole stroke play will take place on May 19th. And moving on to the Winter Olympics, as 10 Korean Sochi medalists were invited to Taeneung on Monday as they were given their financial rewards for their medal finishes. Now, of course, topping the list of recipients, short track star Park Seung-hee, who finished off with 2 gold and 1 bronze medals in Sochi, received over $58,000, with her 17-year-old teammate Shim Seok-hee receiving roughly $44,000 for her gold, silver, and bronze medal finishes. Meanwhile, 500-meter speed skating gold medalist Lee Sang-hwa received over $28,000 for her second straight Olympic gold, while Kim Yeon-ah was given $14,000 for her silver medal finish as well. And on Saturday, the 2014 K-League Classic season kicks off as 12 teams will go after the league title. But on Monday, the K-League Classic Media Day took place as fans wondered what the 12 head coaches had to say about the upcoming season. While the Pohang Steelers are the defending champions going into the new season, 9 of the 12 head coaches in the league chose the Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors as the preseason favorites. Now, some of the other teams mentioned were the Pohang Steelers, the Ulsan Hyundai Tigers, and FC Seoul, while Sangju Sangmu's head coach believed that all the teams have a shot at the title this year, aside from his team. And finishing things off in the NFL, where future Hall of Fame quarterback Peyton Manning passed his medical test on his neck and will be cleared to go for the 2014 season. Now, as part of a requirement that will pay him $20 million this season, he was required to pass a medical test on his surgically repaired neck. And according to the Associated Press, with Manning passing the medical test, he will be playing in 2014. The 2013 MVP, who had 4 neck injuries before signing a 5-year, $96 million deal with the Broncos in 2012, took his team to their first Super Bowl in 15 years as he's gone 28-7 in his 2 seasons so far with the Broncos. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Good Tuesday morning to you. I'm Ijian with your latest weather forecast. Well, spring semester kicked off pretty nice yesterday weather-wise, and I wonder if you had a chance to take advantage of nice weather condition. Well, today should be a bit cooler and cloudier, and southern parts of peninsula will receive a batch of showers late in the evening. Though right now it's looking fairly clear, but clouds will develop mainly in the southern parts of the country as the day goes on, and the shower will begin from Jeju in the afternoon, then spread to other areas. So Jeju is expected to receive 5 to 20 millimeters of rainfall, and then later in the evening, southern coast will receive about 5 millimeters of showers tonight. So if you're in Jeju, Jeollanam-do, or Gyeongsang-nam-do, please be aware of rain today. Well, this round of showers will bring cooler temperatures to the country. Daily highs will drop to single digits, and morning lows will be falling to minus signs as the week progresses. Though the last cold snap, or Gossem Chui, is definitely headed our way later in the week. Well, keep that in mind, and here are the readings for today. The morning low in Seoul starts out at 0, and afternoon highs will rise to 10, and Daegu and Gwangju will get up to 13, while Busan top out at 12 under partly sunny skies. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju and Daejeon will climb up to 12, which is similar to yesterday, while Dokdo climbs up to 9, but the top temperature on Mount Keungang will jump up to positive side, reaching at 1 later in the afternoon. Now, as we can see, the temperature is fluctuating a lot recently, so please be careful not to get sick and take good care of yourself. Now, that's all for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world.
And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about half an hour's time, and we'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.